The thing with the OnePlus 9 is that it's essentially a more affordable version of the maxed out OnePlus flagship, the OnePlus 9 Pro. But whenever newer flagships come out, the older last year models see a price drop which pitches last year's OnePlus 8 Pro directly against the OnePlus 9. I'm Rohan from TechieTechTech and let's compare the OnePlus 9 to the OnePlus 8 Pro. Here we go. Before we go into any detail, let's talk. See, while both these phones are priced similarly today, it is very important to understand the mindset behind both these phones. The OnePlus 8 Pro was OnePlus's maxed out flagship phone for 2020, which means that it was developed with the mindset of making the best OnePlus phone on the market. It was made to be the phone which showcased the best of OnePlus for an entire year. The OnePlus 9 on the other hand was made with a totally different objective. It's kind of a tricky spot because you cannot give the OnePlus 9 a lot of good features because that would kill the sales of the OnePlus 9 Pro, and yet you cannot remove a lot of features because it is after all a very competitive price bracket. So while one out of these two phones was the 2020 Ultimate OnePlus smartphone, the other is a slightly reduced and more affordable version of the 2021 Ultimate OnePlus smartphone. With that cleared up, let's talk about the build quality. In my opinion, this is a very clear-cut competition of practicality versus vanity. The OnePlus 8 Pro with its sharply curved front and back glass, large display and beautiful ultramarine blue color is gorgeous. I also love the classic OnePlus central camera design, especially compared to the top left camera design that basically every phone has in 2021. But with all this pomp and show come compromises. For one, the OnePlus 8 Pro is impossible to use one-handed with its thin aluminum rails and sharp curved glass. You also practically cannot use this phone without a case. It's just impossible to grip. Also, if you end up dropping your phone and breaking it, the curved glass on the front and back are going to be more tricky and more expensive to repair. The OnePlus 9 however is much better in this regard. Its back and front glass are flat, which makes it much more comfortable to hold and grip. If you like using your phone without a case, the OnePlus 9 is just many times better than the 8 Pro. However, keep them side by side and the OnePlus 8 Pro will definitely look like the more sophisticated and the more expensive phone. The fact that the OnePlus 9 uses a plastic frame does not help its case. This is actually quite the head scratcher for me personally, since the cheaper OnePlus 9R and the more expensive OnePlus 9 Pro both use the same aluminium frames. So by what logic does the OnePlus 9 switch to plastic? It is an expensive phone and this sort of cost cutting from OnePlus in such a fiercely competitive market just does not make sense. Moving on, let's talk about the displays. Listen carefully because for someone like me, the display is the biggest deciding factor when choosing between these two phones. The displays are very different and the flagship versus affordable factor comes into play here as well. The OnePlus 8 Pro has a curved display with a much higher resolution, better colors and a higher peak brightness. It is clearly the better display quality wise. The colors pop out more, the text is just sharper and the vibrance is a level above. However, there are two major issues. First, the display of the OnePlus 8 Pro is plagued by some issues from black rush to grain tint. I'll link a video explaining all about it in the description below. Long story short, these are issues which don't ruin the experience but still affect it. Secondly, the display on the OnePlus 8 Pro is way too curved. No, seriously, I've used a lot of phones and in no phone have I faced as many accidental touches and unwanted glare on the edges as the OnePlus 8 Pro. The OnePlus 9 mitigates both these problems by having a flawless flat display. I tested it using the same methods as I did last year on the OnePlus 8 Pro and found no issues. Like I said, it's also a flat panel, so accidental touches or glare is out of the question. In a vacuum, the OnePlus 9 has a beautiful display with great color reproduction, excellent sharpness and good vibrance. However, put it next to the OnePlus 8 Pro and the overall quality does look like a grade below. This is a very complicated and subjective choice to make, so think about your priorities try to get some hands-on time and then make an informed decision. Moving on to something which is a lot simpler, let's talk software. Now both phones are from the same manufacturer, which means they run on the same software platform, which is OxygenOS. Now, despite all its recent shortcomings, OxygenOS has to be one of my favorite Android skins simply because it performs well for multiple years and it does not come with any bloatware. OnePlus phones usually pack top-shelf components which combine with the light and fluid software to basically give the fastest performance of any Android smartphone. But there is one particular shortcoming that really hurts: the update cycle. OnePlus actually used to be fairly good at delivering software updates to its older phones, but recently they've started messing up. The fan favorite OnePlus 7 series received the Android 11 update in March, which is many months after competing Android phones from rival brands. To make matters worse, not only was the update delayed, but it was filled with bugs and issues which led to a massive outcry and OnePlus issuing further hotfix patches. It became a very messy situation which totally ruined the experience of an otherwise excellent smartphone. When you keep all of that in mind, the OnePlus 9 simply makes more sense than the OnePlus 8 Pro because it is one of the latest phones, so it will receive software updates much faster and with a lot less bugs. We can hope that OnePlus fixes their software update situation this year, but until that actually happens, the OnePlus 9 definitely looks like the safer bet. The OnePlus 9 is also the safer bet when it comes to performance. It is the newer phone in this comparison, so it packs the newer Snapdragon 888 CPU compared to last year's Snapdragon 865 CPU on the OnePlus 8 Pro. To be honest, I didn't even want to talk about this. Both these phones are ridiculously fast and the performance is so similar that you would be hard pressed to find any difference. Even when you compare the performance for the most hardcore gaming or other intense stuff, the performance is extremely similar. However, while there is no performance difference now, there will be a few years later. See, every phone has to lag eventually, and that lag will come sooner for the OnePlus 8 Pro simply because it has the older processor. However, if you plan to use your phone for 1 to 2 years, I wouldn't consider the performance difference as a major deciding factor while making your decision. Let's talk about the cameras now. When it comes to optics, both smartphones have very similar hardware. The OnePlus 9 sports a 48MP f1.8 primary sensor with no OIS, a 50MP f2.2 ultra-wide camera and a 2MP monochrome camera. On the other hand, the OnePlus 8 Pro has the exact same 48MP f1.8 primary camera with OIS and laser autofocus, a 48MP f2.2 ultra-wide sensor, an 8MP f2.4 telephoto sensor and a 5MP color filter camera. This year, OnePlus has partnered with Hasselblad and the collaboration has contributed to the color calibration aspect for the OnePlus 9 as well as the OnePlus 9 Pro. Let's find out more about how these devices perform in real life. As always, we'll talk about the photos first and then move on to the videos. In a vacuum, both devices have really good primary camera performance. After all, they do sport the exact same sensor. Now both smartphones shoot sharp pictures with respectable details. Once we put these devices side by side, the OnePlus 9 shows its true colors. It shoots pictures with accurate colors and an overall cooler tone. In short, the pictures shot with the 9 are less contrasty and have a somewhat neutral look as compared to the contrasty pictures shot with the OnePlus 8 Pro. On one hand, the OnePlus 9 also captures more accurate skin tones, while on the flip side, the OnePlus 8 Pro captures sharper pictures with a warmer tone. One major difference that could be a deciding factor depending on your use is that the OnePlus 9 does not have optical image stabilization on the primary camera. This means that when you zoom in, the picture shot with the 8 Pro looks sharper with less artifacts and significantly better noise processing. We see a similar performance while shooting with the ultra-wide camera. The OnePlus 9 shoots pictures which have a slightly wider field of view with less fringing and more neutral colors. On the other hand, the 8 Pro retains its contrasty look with low noise. The OnePlus 8 Pro is the clear winner when it comes to the telephoto camera performance. The 8 Pro has a dedicated 8MP camera which offers 3 times optical zoom as compared to the 3 times digital zoom on the OnePlus 9. Therefore, it shoots sharper stills with rich details. You'll notice the real difference when shooting portraits with human subjects and selfies. The color calibration really fixed everything that was wrong with the skin tone processing in all old OnePlus smartphones. The portraits and selfies shot with the OnePlus 9 have more accurate skin tones and look less processed and contrasty. In addition to that, we also noticed some improvements in the subject separation in portrait mode. Apart from the color temperature differences, both devices shoot respectable low light pictures. Thanks to the optical image stabilization, the OnePlus 8 Pro performs significantly better while shooting long exposures in night mode. Moving on to the videos, when it comes to the resolution and frame rate department, the OnePlus 9 is the clear winner. Thanks to the newer Snapdragon 888 CPU, the OnePlus 9 can shoot videos in 8K at 30 frames per second, that too from both the primary and ultra-wide camera. Do note that both devices top at Full HD at 30 fps while shooting videos from the front-facing camera. When it comes to the video quality, both devices shoot crisp videos with rich details. The OnePlus 8 Pro maintains its contrasty look while the OnePlus 9 shoots videos in a neutral tone and offers high dynamic range. The neutral tone makes the OnePlus 9 more suitable for users who are interested in post-production like editing and color grading. One major factor to consider is again the lack of OIS on the OnePlus 9. There are noticeable jitters when you're walking and shooting a video with the OnePlus 9. The OnePlus 8 Pro clearly has the upper hand in this scenario. To conclude, if you're a user looking for a decent camera, both smartphones are good enough for most users. However, optical image stabilization can be a big deal depending on the kind of camera usage a person has, and in my personal opinion, the presence of OIS is a far bigger advantage than the presence of Hasselblad color calibration, something which technically could be replicated by post-production. So even though both the cameras are really similar, I would give the slight edge to the OnePlus 8 Pro. Moving on, let's discuss the battery life. I am getting roughly 5 to 5.5 hours of screen on time on the OnePlus 9, which is a little more than a day's worth of usage for me. The OnePlus 8 Pro gives me around 4 to 4.5 hours of screen on time, which is actually very similar if you keep in mind that my particular OnePlus 8 Pro is an year old while the OnePlus 9 is a new phone with a fresh battery pack. If you compare both the phones with newer, fresher battery packs, I am sure that you will get roughly the same battery life. Also, things get really interesting when it comes to charging. The OnePlus 9 charges noticeably faster with the newer Warp Charge 65 technology compared to the older Warp Charge 30 on the OnePlus 8 Pro. Now I personally use slower charging methods whenever I can to maintain battery health, but if you are someone who prioritizes charging speed, the OnePlus 9 should definitely be your choice. On the other hand, if you prioritize wireless charging, the OnePlus 8 Pro clearly takes the lead. The OnePlus 8 Pro supports regular Qi wireless charging and even faster wireless Warp charging with a first-party accessory. There's also support for reverse wireless charging. The OnePlus 9 in India does not support wireless charging, while the global model supports up to 15-watt wireless charging and no reverse charging. Now for a few quick highlights before we conclude. Both the OnePlus 9 and the OnePlus 8 Pro have crazy good fingerprint sensors, although the one on the OnePlus 9 is situated too low for my preference. The stereo speakers are slightly better on the OnePlus 8 Pro, but otherwise very similar. Haptics are also excellent on both phones and very similar. Call quality is significantly better on the OnePlus 9. While the earpiece, loudspeaker and mic itself are identical on both devices, I found repeatedly that the OnePlus 9 was better at holding on to a signal and was quicker when transitioning between voice over LTE and voice over Wi-Fi. It will definitely make a difference if you're someone who makes a lot of phone calls. Now to conclude. Both the OnePlus 9 and the OnePlus 8 Pro are extremely identical yet extremely different phones. If you're someone like me who already uses the OnePlus 8 Pro, don't get the OnePlus 9. It just does not make any sense. However, if you're in the market and stuck between these two phones, I would highly recommend you to rethink your priorities, try to go hands-on and then make an informed decision. But whichever phone you end up picking, don't forget to relish the best of Android in your brand new phone. I hope you enjoyed this video guys, and if you did, please make our day by liking it, sharing it and subscribing to our channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This has been Rohan from TechieTechTech and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.